Now, here's the hosts of Top Story, Kelly Klass and Jill Skeen.
Good morning and welcome to Top Story 7360300. Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Kelly.
I can tell it's going to be an interesting morning.
Happy New Year to all the Jews out there.
That's right.
Happy Rosh Hashanah.
Is the Jewish Happy New Year.
Lashana Tova is what they say.
5,775 years.
That's it.
Wow.
I know.
I'm all of a sudden feeling older.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why a lot of people say, anything that happened before, those times didn't exist. And anyway, but yeah, I should be online watching services or in some place I'm not. And so this is the first time in my life I've ever worked on Rosh Hashanah. Yeah.
Wow. Well, maybe you can take
off
off
big
early.
Interviews today, so, I wanted to be here.
We have Democratic gubernatorial candidate A.J. Balukoff and Democratic lieutenant governor candidate Bert Marley coming in for the 9 o'clock hour. For those of you out there who are wondering, yes, we do have invites in to Governor Butch Otter, the Republican candidate. We have invites in to Mike Simpson and also Lieutenant Governor Brad Little. And seems like there was another one in there that I said, and I am in communication with them. So it is the election season. We can't have everybody on all at once. But we do send out these invitations. We can't make them appear, but we do offer them equal time.
Well, when someone asks to be on, you say yes, and then you ask their opponent,
Sure,
and
right.
It's their choice, up to them if they want to come or not. And so
today,
that's where we are.
We have Balukoff and Marley, so that'll be coming up during the 9 o'clock hour. Also, at 8:20, we have Linda Fleming from Habitat for Humanity with an event that's coming up. We have the Cops with the Bad Guys list at 8:30 today.
So listen up. And I actually did go to the debate last night. It's interesting. Another disappointment, not as well attended as you would think.
Well,
but things are going on.
They're right.
I'm sure that, and the whole Jewish community is celebrating Rosh Hashanah. So
well, that was
and
it.
without the Jewish vote, you cannot win an election. I don't know what these candidates are thinking. Why do you plan a debate on Rosh Hashanah?
Yeah, no kidding.
I know.
All 6 of the Jews from the Twin Falls area couldn't
Not
make
there.
it.
I was there though.
Yeah. Okay.
Which only because we had the interview today. So anyway, whatever.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's coming up. So we do have some other news, too, and sometimes when you read some of these news stories, you just have to shake your head. An employee of an Idaho trucking company, if you listen to AM Idaho, you heard this. An employee of an Idaho trucking company abandoned a trailer load of frozen chicken at a western Montana truck stop after the company reportedly refused a ransom demand. So apparently the truck driver got into Montana with this truckload of frozen chicken.
Yeah.
And then he calls the company and says, I want X amount of money. Now, this is alleged now. This is just kind of, since the story is not clear, but this is what sounds like happened. I want X amount of money or I'm going to abandon this load out here in the middle of nowhere. And they didn't, and so he did.
But doesn't he get paid anyway? Like, who was he? Yeah, he was shipping for.
Apparently, it wasn't enough. I don't know. That's just kind of what the story sounds like.
So did they have a big fried chicken event there after it defrosted?
No, they had 35,000 pounds of frozen chicken that thawed out and rotted.
Oh.
$80,000 worth of chicken. 35,000 pounds, which could have gone to feed people.
Oh, I know.
But instead, there's some weird freakazoid out there who deserves to be behind bars.
How did he get away?
Trying to extort the company that he worked for, which was out of Nampa.
How did he get away? I mean, did he leave the truck? Yes.
Well, obviously he did,
did he walk home?
I don't know.
I mean, nothing of this makes sense.
Well, of course not, Jill, because
people are crazy.
I'm sure there are answers to your questions. They're just not included in this short little story we have here.
What is wrong with these journalists, then? These are questions people need to know. You don't just do a half story.
Well, you need
what
to
happened to the chicken? Where did the man go?
Of the AP who got it from the Missoula's newspaper and tell them.
Why did the chicken cross the road? I don't know.
We need more information here.
To get his friends that are frozen. I don't know. That is insane.
So anyway.
And
yeah, it is.
Clearly the guy isn't going to get paid anyway. And how do you even come up with this? You're going to hijack chicken? I don't know. Every day it's just like
It wasn't successful, and he carried out his threat, and he left the trailer load of chicken there at the
Shame
truck
on
stop
him
near
and all the
Missoula,
people
Montana.
it could feed.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
all the chickens that died for that.
Now, we've talked about Target, of course. That was the big breach of security here a while back.
6 million cards.
Then there was, well...
It was Target.
The Target
now
was... And then
Home
there was
Depot.
Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, which it's getting to the point, gee, where is the breach this week? Jimmy John's sandwich chain said Wednesday that it believes customers' credit card data was stolen from 216 of its shops between June and September. Yes, the Twin Falls store on Blue Lakes was included in that list of affected stores.
Ouch.
This
is when you should pay for your sandwiches in cash.
This from the AP, the Champaign, Illinois-based chain said in a news release that stores in 37 states across the United States were affected. It did not say how many customers are affected.
Hey. So what did they tell you to do something if you have visited them between June 16th and September 15th?
Not necessarily in this story. However, I don't know. Maybe Jimmy John's has contacted those customers somehow. I don't know. I just don't know.
And they're roughly saying the ones in Twin Falls who went there between July 1st and August 2nd could be affected. So it wasn't the whole time. They think it's just a month in Twin Falls. So that should make you feel better.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, we've got to.
It makes you.
We either have to go to the European technology in these credit cards,
or cash,
one or the other,
or bring your lunch.
I guess you could do that too.
What a concept! I don't know.
But
Cook
it's
for
just,
yourself.
I mean, it's getting to the point where
it's bad.
You know, I'm getting reluctant to use my check card anywhere.
Yeah.
And there are some things that you can't use. You can't use cash if you buy stuff online or something like that.
It really makes you wonder. But the thing of it is they say check your credit card balance. You can go online and check. And if there's just small charges, they'll try to put in little ones.
Right.
Sneak them in so you don't see it, just under the radar. Like, oh, $10 here, $20 there,
and a lot of
$100
times,
there.
what those are too is it's a test to see if it's going to work. That happened to me at Target, as a matter of fact. It's been several years ago, and I was notified through email from Target Security, and I just thought it was a scam. It's like, yeah, right. And finally, I just 2 or 3 days later, I thought, I'll just read it and see what it says, and it was legit.
Then Kelly's attention
they'll just ding you like 2 cents or 1 cent or something like that, just to make sure that the line is open and they can actually get in and get it. And so I notified them.
Just to make sure you're totally
and they
not
shut
paying
it
attention.
down. But yeah. But for those who do online banking like I do, I mean, you can check your balance anytime you want. And I've gone mobile now, so I can even check it on my smartphone. And that is a smart thing to do because you just can't take any chances.
No,
my daughter got hit
scary.
in Montana here a few days ago.
That's what you said. But she got her money back, right?
Yeah. The bank gave her money back. But, I mean, imagine how expensive that is for our institutions. Holy smokes. And there are people out there who just... And they're not necessarily from this country. A lot of them are from foreign countries. In fact, probably most of them are. But
well, there's some little devils out in our country, too.
Oh, yeah.
That are doing
yeah,
this
you
stuff.
betcha. You bet. Well,
little
this one here...
17-year-old guys with, I don't know.
This deal with Jimmy John's apparently was... Jimmy John's believes someone stole login credentials and remotely installed malware on machines used to swipe credit cards. Some customers' credit cards, expiration dates, verification codes, and names were stolen between June 16th and September 15th, the company said. So they discovered that on July 30th.
And today's what? September 25th? And you finally find out? Whoops! I'm sorry, but I think they should notify people a little sooner than 2 months later.
I don't know what the circumstances are. Maybe they just...
They don't want
to
panic?
Confirm it, and I don't know. I don't know what the deal is.
I don't know.
At least 14 Islamic State fighters were killed in airstrikes by U.S.-led forces overnight in northeast Syria, according to a group monitoring the war. The Syrian Air Force bombed rebel areas in the west of the country. The U.S.-led strikes killed at least 5 civilians, said Rami, whatever his name is, who runs the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Syrian forces carried out air raids using barrel bombs, and it just goes through the... So anyway, the airstrikes in that neck of the woods now are in full swing. So
Yeah, and they're dropping them on refineries and things like that, where they're getting their money. They're selling I think, crude oil. I think, aren't they, to make them one of the reasons how they get their money.
ISIS and that, what's that other Khorasan? Is that that's the latest break off of Al Qaeda or whatever it is? They say, and I watched on 60 Minutes on Sunday, former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta said that they are financing themselves up to $6 million every single day.
Yeah.
From the oil sales.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if we can get in there and stop that and stop their funding. And
what countries are buying it from them? Why would you buy it from them? Well, you stop it, choke it off. But you know what I'm saying? You have a lot of countries there. They have a coalition. The Middle East is worried about these guys taking over their countries. Why would you then buy oil from them?
Well, I think it goes into the big picture. I don't know how that works, but
anyway,
I mean, most of those people over there hate us anyway. And when it comes to this kind of thing, they're not going to stop doing it just because of this, because they're probably halfway sympathetic to ISIS
allies.
Anyway.
I'm sorry, some of our allies. And so you think, my
even
gosh.
Our allies, are you kidding? Saudi Arabia, they tell us to their face that they're our friends, and then they turn around. They're not our friend. They're probably right in the middle of this.
Hello. But I'm saying, so why are we, giving them money? Why do they? I mean, I think Saudi Arabia,
$64 question.
Then cut off their funding. That's what's so crazy. And you never know what really the true story is behind all this. You don't. You don't know the deals here. You don't know the deals there. You don't. It's pathetic. But
welcome to the world today.
But then, in some sense, these fighters must be like, oh, we are so great that we've brought the United States and the world to their knees, and they're attacking us because we're such strong threat. You know what I mean? In one way, we're just
boosting
playing their ego. Yeah. You're such a threat.
I know,
we're
but
so
what are you
worried.
going to do?
We're
What are you
so
going to do?
crazy.
You can't ignore them. Yeah. You can't ignore them. You can't just say, oh, you know what? They're just doing this on purpose. They're just doing this to drain our resources.
Of course.
But you can't just say, so we're going to ignore them.
What they really want is our boots on the ground so they can kill us in person.
No doubt.
And that's why no way.
736-0300, top story. You're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Kelly. Good morning, lovely Jill.
Good morning.
Intelligent dialogue and intelligent day today, everybody.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said. You keep mumbling.
I think it's the phone.
It's going to be an intelligent day because we're going to have intelligent people on your show.
Oh.
I get it. Oh, okay. Very good.
Well, save your questions if you want to ask the governor candidate at 9 o'clock.
We'll be right back with Linda Fleming from Habitat for Humanity here on Top Story. 7360300, the number to call here this morning on Top Story. Before we get to Linda Fleming with Habitat for Humanity, just wanted to tell you that they have a new flexible pipe called Certiset, available now through Far More of Idaho. It's an irrigation pipe that once it's out in your field, you really don't have to move it out or move it in. You just leave it there, and your equipment works around it. It's kind of a unique deal, and it's difficult for me to describe here on the radio. So I would suggest you get a hold of the folks at Far More of Idaho, 324-3341. Ask them about Certiset. No more moving pipe. No more spraying borders around the field. You can grow and harvest every square inch of your field. Far More of Idaho can tell you all about it. Again, they're at 324-3341 or at farmoreofidaho.com. Linda Fleming from Habitat for Humanity. Good morning.
Good morning to you both.
You have a cool event that's coming up. What's it called and how's it work?
We have a brand new collaboration together with the Magic Valley Arts Council, Habitat for Humanity. We're hosting an event called Home is Where the Art Is. And it's going to be an art and antique auction that'll happen on November 8th at the Restore. And we will be having live auctions and silent auctions on items that are donated to both of our charities, and hopefully a great fundraiser at the end of the day.
I know. You always hope for that, right?
Yes.
We need as much money as possible.
We are both nonprofits doing great things in this community, and we feel that together we can put together a pretty new and interesting event.
So how does this work?
We are collecting donations from the public. That's why we're here today, reaching out to as many people as we can. We need your art and antiques that you're done with. You can donate them to Habitat or to the Magic Valley Arts Council. They can be dropped off at the Restore or at the Magic Valley Arts Council. You receive a tax donation for that item that you have well loved over the years but are done with. You can pass it forward, take that tax write-off, and we both benefit.
And I just was doing that. I've been, decluttering. You look at things and you're like, it's just probably the time of year, like, let's just get rid of it. And there's this picture. I mean, the glass was broken in a move or something. And I really like this piece of work, but you're just like, I don't really want it anymore. So, and I was just thinking the last couple of days, what do I do with it? So it's so interesting that you came in because you don't want to throw out your piece of art and you don't know who would take it. But you could actually make money from it.
That's exactly right, and you can have a nice tax donation for it as well. And
it doesn't matter that the glass is broken. You guys can fix that.
We can fix that, and we can push it forward to someone else to love it up for many years to come, like you have for the past.
I know.
20.
I've had it for a long time.
Yeah.
You feel bad. You get attached, but then you're like, okay, do I spend the money to reframe it and put it up? And I have other things now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then what about people? You said something about before the break that people could go in and get items from the store and then make art out of it and take it back.
I've had many artists come in and use the Restore to purchase things for their items, and I've challenged them. Yeah, I can give you 3 or 4 things today as long as you bring me back what it is that you do with so well with our Restore items. And I've had several of our artists say that they're bringing things in for this event. We have a beautiful table on display out at 486 in the lobby that was just this piece of wood that came into the store, and I challenged one of our volunteers to do something with it, and it is an amazing table now.
Is that going to be on the auction?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Great. So for people who haven't been to the Restore, and I haven't yet, what does the Restore have?
The Restore is filled with new and used building materials, everything from plumbing items, trim, paint, all sorts of things that you would use
cabinets
to redo cabinets.
Yeah.
Exactly. And all these items are donated to Habitat, and then we turn them around and price them at just real nice low prices, at least half of retail and down from there. So you're always going to get a bargain, and it's ever changing. And we've got a new location and 16,000 square feet of sales floor now. We've doubled in size in the last year, and it's just a fabulous spot. It's located right next door to where we were before. It's just 639 Eastland Drive South.
Oh, okay.
And so this is a chance to show off our new store too, and all the things that it has to offer as well at this art is.
So when you talk about antiques, what kind of antiques? Like some people look at it and go, it's old, it's from my grandmother. Is it really an antique?
Well, if you feel that it's something someone else would like, yes, it is. We have a beautiful sideboard. We've got a great old couch that's coming in. A lot of things are starting to arrive. And again, people, what you've loved, someone else should love as well.
Right.
Is it old and broken down and has no purpose? Then maybe not so much.
Right.
Yeah.
But then again, we can always sell it at the Restore. So
yeah. Okay, so time and place again and all this?
Home is Where the Art Is will be on November 8th from 5 until 9. We'll have light hors d'oeuvres there, as well as live and silent auctions, some fun events, things to do as well.
What day is that? Is that
that's
a Saturday?
A Saturday.
Okay.
That's a Saturday evening.
And that's going to be at the Restore.
Located at the Restore, 639 Eastland Drive South.
And drop the stuff off now.
Drop the stuff off now so we can get it all cleaned up and arranged. And
do you have a phone number in case people need more info?
Absolutely. We are 735-1233.
Okay.
And they can also see some things on our website at habitatmagicvalley.org. It'll be up on the website and on your website, I think.
Very
good. Well, Linda, thank you. Sounds like a great event.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have the Cops with the Bad Guys list next here on Top Story. 7360300, the number to call here, always on Top Story. Coming up at 9 o'clock, we'll have Democratic gubernatorial candidate A.J. Balukoff and Democratic lieutenant governor candidate Bert Marley with us for the hour. So stay tuned for that. Right now, though, and I got to do this right, so let's do it right.
Bad boys, what you want, what you gonna do when Chevy John Brown comes?
We have Sergeant Ken Minsel from the Twin Falls County Sheriff's Department. Good morning,
Good
Sergeant.
morning. I
morning,
find
Kelly,
it interesting
Jill.
that you haven't lost that bump, that music. He's lost all the other. I think he's nervous. It's the taser and the gun.
Well, at least it's not I shot the sheriff, right?
That's right.
I
Yeah.
might be able to find that one. I think we do.
Oh, no. We don't want bad
We
juju.
wouldn't do that.
No.
So, you have a bad person for us this morning, or a
Yep.
couple or three.
I brought two with me today, male and a female. The first one is Fortino Espinosa. He's 5'3", 150 pounds, black hair and brown eyes, and his warrant is for $50,000 on felony domestic battery.
Oh.
Shows that he was last addressed over in the Jerome area. Anybody who knows where Mr. Espinosa is at, you're encouraged to call dispatch at 735-1911 or Crime Stoppers.
Have you tried the NFL?
Right.
Just asking.
Bam! He'll be here all week, people. Let's call Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
Kim Cummins is our next one. She's got a misdemeanor warrant for $20,000 for DUI. Kim is, her date of birth is in 1965. She's 5'6", 135 pounds, red hair and brown eyes. So anybody who knows where Kim or Mr. Fortino's at, you're encouraged to call Crime Stoppers 732-5387 for a cash reward, or dispatch at 735-1911.
All right. Very
All
good.
right.
You were telling us before we came on an interesting story now about how these vaping, what do they call it? The vapor cigarette machines.
Right.
Okay, the marijuana smokers now have taken that to a new level. I thought it was very interesting.
They're
Absolutely.
so clever, these people.
Aren't they, though?
I know it.
Well, we're dealing with bath salts and
Yeah.
haze and
Spice
spice and
and-
all
yeah.
that good stuff. Recently, as we're looking at some emerging trends which seem to be coming our way, you see these e-cigarettes that are popular in the convenience stores and head shops and whatnot. They're taking marijuana and they're putting it in a glass beaker, and then they're using butane. And there's a couple different methods, but it seems like the butane method one is the more popular method. And they'll take the butane.
Should we be telling him how to do this? Is this promoting this?
They'll-
But go ahead, Sergeant.
They'll extract the THC using
Yeah.
this butane method.
Yeah.
And what people used to smoke back in the day was 12% THC. We're seeing some bud now that's maybe 30% THC using this butane method. And then it's either converted into an oil, a wax, or a glass type shard. Using it in these vaping devices, these e-cigarettes and whatnot, we're seeing anywhere between 89 and 95% THC content.
Now, can that be
Wow.
fatal or
Talk
anything?
about Breaking Bad.
I was talking to one of our ER docs
Yeah.
about it, and she happened to mention that the effects that will be seen as we start to see this become more widely used are some pretty bad trips that most likely we'll see ramifications from in the emergency room.
Really?
They haven't seen any deaths yet.
Not here, no.
No.
Really, really popular in a couple of states that you can imagine. We mentioned those two states.
What, Colorado and Oregon? What?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, Washington.
So are they
yeah.
are they having any fatalities from this? Because that's a big jump. What did you say? It was 12%, now up to 98%.
Yeah, anywhere
Maybe
between
30,
85
yeah.
and 98%, yeah.
What would that be comparable to? How many old-fashioned marijuana cigarettes would you have to smoke in order to get that?
I think you'd be
kind
smoking a traditional joint all day long to get to
Yeah.
that point, yeah.
Wow.
My goodness.
That's
And now you
scary.
can just get it in a few minutes.
Yeah, and one of the bad things is smoking it in that oil form, in that e-cigarette, is almost odorless.
Oh, so then you
so
can't
it's
detect it.
undetectable.
You're right. You're walking through the fair or walking through the mall using your e-tool, and
Does
pretty
the
difficult to
vapor have
tell.
a scent? Normally the e-cigarettes, do they have a scent? So it would throw
They-
off a different scent?
They do. I can attest
do,
to that a
yeah.
little bit. It's a little bit. It sounds like it smells like a steamy scent because it is actually. It's steam.
Well, and even as we were talking about some of these effects on just people using the oils in them for the nicotine as a substitute for cigarettes, those chemicals aren't manufactured in the United States. Some of the information that we received is that they're manufactured overseas, not regulated by the FDA. So while you might be getting your nicotine, who knows what else you're ingesting?
Oh, that is
Oh, yeah.
interesting. That is
Lead,
interesting.
arsenic, whatever.
Wow. So all you can do, and I mean, there's probably not a lot you can do to detect these things then.
There is.
There's always something
There's
you can
always
do.
something
What,
we
do
can
you,
do,
what are you
absolutely.
going to do?
Does it involve helicopters?
Right, black helicopters, right. It's just knowing what to look for, knowing the nomenclature of the e-cigarettes, and a lot of these e-cigarettes have different tanks that allow you to smoke these products a different way, whether you're using the oil, the wax, or the shards. As you know what you're looking for, and you know somebody's got an e-cigarette plugged into their car, you know kind of what to look for.
Interesting stuff, Sergeant Ken Menzel.
In their car filled with munchies or something.
Now, while we
there
can't
might be
smell
something.
it, the dogs still can.
Oh,
okay,
there you go.
that's good.
Watch out for the
You're
dogs.
not safe
All right.
out there, people.
Good information. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do.
And you be safe out there.
Thanks.
This is Top Story, and we'll be right back. 7360300, the number to call here this morning on Top Story. That was interesting stuff that Sergeant Menzel was talking about.
I
with
know.
marijuana.
And before the segment, he goes, I don't have really that much to talk about. And then they'll start talking. So we're like, you got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Well, hey, I'll tell you what. If you're looking for some guns, maybe, you can find them at Canyon Pawn. If you're looking for camping supplies, Canyon Pawn. Woodworking stuff, Canyon Pawn. Fishing poles, tools. Canyon Pawn is just what it says. It is a pawn shop, and it is the newest one in Twin Falls. Talk to Dave Hansen and the crew, and you can mosey around the store. You can go in every day if you want, just to see the different inventory that comes in at a pawn shop.
Mosey.
And mosey around.
Mosey around.
Yeah, that's mosey around. Mm-hmm. And they're locally owned. They got brand new and used items, and they've got stuff in there that you would find hard to believe. 933-2600 is the number to call. They're on Shoshone Street, right across from Will's Toyota, right there on the corner. I don't know what street. I'll have to pay attention to what that street is.
If you can't find it, something's wrong with you. They got a little flag out front. You can find it.
Yeah, and a big sign on the front of the store, so it's not difficult to find. Right across from Will's Toyota. So
there's not a lot down there.
Tell them hi.
Yes.
Also online at canyonpawn.com.
That's right.
Ran into an interesting story this morning. And by the way, A.J. Balukoff, the Democratic gubernatorial candidate, coming up at 9 o'clock, along with the lieutenant governor candidate on the Democratic ticket, Bert Marley. So it'll be an interesting hour. That's coming up.
Have your questions ready if you didn't go to the debate.
That's right. I'm going to just kind of go through this part quickly, but it kind of sets up the story to tell you what's going on. The thermometer showed 103.5-degree fever, and her 10-year-old's asthma was flaring up. Mary Bolender, who lives in Las Vegas, needed to get her daughter to an emergency room, but her 2005 Chrysler van would not start. The cause was not a mechanical problem. It was her lender.
What
Ms. Bolender was 3 days behind on her monthly car payment.
Oh, my.
Her lender, CAG Acceptance of Mesa, Arizona, remotely activated a device in her car's dashboard that prevented her car from starting. Before she could get back on the road, she had to pay more than $389, money she did not have that morning in March. She said she felt absolutely helpless. She's a single mother. She had to stop working to care for her daughter. It was not the only time this happened. Her car was shut down that March, once in April, and again in June. This is new technology they are bringing to auto loans and Wall Street's version of Big Brother into the lives of people with credit scores battered by the financial downturn. Now, I notice in this story they blame the credit score on the financial downturn. You know, there are some people who just buy stuff with no intention of paying for it. So there are people out there with bad credit, and it had nothing to do with the financial downturn. Let's just get that straight right now.
And here's a news flash. If you have bad credit, why are they loaning to you? In the past, they wouldn't loan to you, and that's been part of the problem and part of the huge downfall in 2008. Read on.
This is
Read on.
Auto loans to borrowers considered subprime. Those with credit scores at or below 640 have spiked in the last 5 years. The jump has been driven in a large part by the demand among investors for securities backed by the loans, which offer high returns at a time of low interest rates. Roughly 25% of all new auto loans made last year were subprime, and the volume of subprime auto loans reached more than $145 billion in the first 3 months of this year.
And there you have it.
So, what do you think?
Okay, my first question is, did she know they were putting that device in her car?
She had to have known because it happened 3 or 4 months earlier.
No, but I mean the first time it happened. Do you know when you buy the car, they're like, I'm going to put this device in your car?
They would have to divulge that.
Then the second thing,
they can't do that.
3 days late. The other thing is, say in this emergency, what if her daughter died? Is the car loan people, are they responsible? Because basically, you stopped her car from working to get her daughter to the emergency room or wherever. I mean, there's so many implications in this. It's ridiculous.
And it could be maybe that they would not be blamed because she didn't make her car payment.
So your daughter should die. I mean, should someone have that kind of control, or should they, here's a news flash, not loan them the money?
Or maybe the people
but they're
shouldn't
making
pursue
too much
these
money
out.
on this.
They should maybe think twice before they pursue these loans. Gee, you can go around Twin Falls and you can buy cars at these subprime rates. They're for people again with poor credit.
Because they're taking advantage of them. But the thing of it is,
wait a minute. Why are they taking advantage? They're giving them an opportunity.
Of course.
And a lot of the people destroy that opportunity because they don't know how to keep their credit in good shape.
A lot of the people who had who were going for home loans, a lot of times you would go to your bank. When I bought my condo in '94, you go there, you say, what do I qualify for? You trust them, based on this, and this, and this.
And they're going on the information you give them.
No, they can check it. My gosh, they knew every credit card that you might have been late on. I remember I had to write a letter once because I was late on my Bloomingdale's because I was on vacation. I mean, that's what it used to be like to get any kind of a loan. And then they realized, you know what? We're making too much money. We're bundling them. We're selling them. And they're doing the same thing with these things. 25% to people who obviously cannot afford to pay, for a car. But then you're late 3 days and they turn your car off.
But she had a history of being late.
Well,
for 4 other months she was late.
So
who do you blame?
I don't think they should give her the loan.
Do you blame
or the car?
Obviously. But do you blame the people who make these loans available for people with poor credit, or do you blame the people going after these loans when they know full well they may not be able to afford it? But that doesn't stop them. So what if you can't afford it? It's not the American way to let that stop you.
They should say, no, you can't afford it. I'm not going to risk my money. But they aren't, because they're sitting there making more money the other way.
Say, wait a minute, you turned down a loan for them. Now we're going to jerk your
What are you talking about?
License.
The government bailed out Wall Street.
They had
no problems.
7360300. Top story. You're on the air. Good morning.
This is outrageous. I mean, you just said it yourself. I mean, what it all boils down to, it's the people's own responsibility. They shouldn't be buying cars they can't afford, period.
Would you would you do a loan to someone that you knew couldn't afford it? Is there
Absolutely
any kind
not,
of fiduciary responsibility?
It's the people's own responsibility, though. I mean, the company that's making the loan is solely to make profits.
Yeah, clearly.
They're going to make the profits.
But if they don't pay back the loan,
it's the people's own responsibility to not buy things they can't afford.
It's the same reason I don't go out and buy $1 million condo or $1 million estate, because I know I can't afford it.
But look how many. But you know what? There's a responsibility on both sides. And when you sit there and look at someone and go, oh, can I? They're like, no, you can afford this. You can afford this. But the point of this story is that's one issue. The point is, should they be able to turn your car off whenever they feel like it? If you're a day, 2 days, 3 days past, should they be able to do it? I don't think so. I mean, it's like, where does it end? Is it going to turn off your gas if you happen to be late? What if you're on vacation? You didn't pay your bills.
They're turning off people's water.
They are, but only for people, the poor people. They're still letting the stadium, who owes like $4 or $5 million, still have the stadium, and they haven't paid their water bill. But where does it stop? Do you want the gas company to just automatically turn it off? Your water company automatically?
They do.
But without notice?
The power company,
without
they have
notice?
to give you notice.
This guy had no notice.
The power company will do the same thing, only they don't turn it off during the winter.
But this had no notice. She just third day and her car didn't start.
She probably knew what was going to happen because it had already happened to her 4 times before.
But that's one example. But talk about someone who didn't have notice.
Who knows that she didn't already know?
Yeah, I'm sure she had notice, and that's why she went into her car, because her daughter needed to go to the emergency room, and she goes, oh, I know my car doesn't start. Come on.
And when they wrote this story, they took one of the most terrible things that could ever happen. What about the people out there who get these loans, then they have no I know. I was in the check business here back in the 90s. There are people who go in and they borrow money with no intention of paying you back, and they dare you to come after them.
But
there
you know
are
what?
people
I
like
am
this
sorry,
in this
but
business.
part of the mortgage problem was that stuff was not up front. It was not disclosed. That's why they had the Consumer Financial Protection Agency that they created, because these people were not informed. And, it's both parties. But that's not the point of the story. Do you think someone should have power to turn off your car or whatever, whenever they feel like it?
When you haven't made the payment.
Well, 3 days. 3 days pass. You even have a grace period for 5 days of the rent.
4 previous months,
But
Jill.
you don't know if that happened the first time in March. I mean, 3 days. Don't you have a grace
period?
period?
History of not paying. Maybe that was after the grace period.
But fine. But what about a new situation? Forget this. Okay, fine. It happened to her before, but fine. Should they have the responsibility to let you know? And they should let you know every time, not just the first time.
I'm sure they did, Jill. Because
it's not in the article.
So what? Just because
so
it's not on the article.
So we'll just make up facts?
For crying out loud.
We'll just make up facts?
You're the one who's making up facts. You just said they didn't notify them. How do we know? We don't know if they didn't notify her.
If they notified her, she wouldn't have gotten in her car with her sick daughter to drive her to the emergency room. She would have called a cab. Why would you get into a car that didn't work with your sick child going to the emergency room?
She was probably just hoping that they hadn't shut it off yet.
But the point is, that's not the point. We're trying to get what people's views are. Do you think they should have
calls?
Jeez, oh man.
736-0300. Top story. You're on the air. What do you think?
Well, I have to say that it's her own. I feel sorry for the situation. It is, like Kelly said, probably one of the most drastic situations you can find. I'm just curious, was her cell phone shut off too? Because 911 works pretty good in case of an emergency.
Yeah, and they will work even if you don't have service. Then you can call 911 on a cell phone and without having to have a service. So that's a good point. 736-0300.
What is the good point? Obviously, the woman, how would she have known?
She could have called 911.
But that's not the point of the story. Do you want the people to be able to turn off your car whenever they feel like it?
If you don't make your payment.
3 days if you miss your payment, 1 day, whatever.
If you hadn't been doing it in months before,
for God's sake.
She had a history of it.
Okay.
736-0300. Top story, you're on the air.
Yeah, Jill, these loans have been around for 2 or 3 years here in Idaho, and they do notify the people the day they turn them off, and the people sign the papers when they first get the car. So they are notified. They understand that that's going to happen if they don't make the payments.
Do they notify them when it's happening? Because obviously she wasn't notified. She got into her car. I mean,
well, actually,
they
do
notify it with all the pile of papers that they hand you.
The people that I've dealt with, they do notify them. They do call them the same before they turn the car off.
So
and is there a grace period?
No.
So it could be like it could be 1 day.
Yeah, that's in the original contract.
Do you think
and they know that when they sign it.
Do you think that's fair?
Why wouldn't it be fair?
Well, no. If you're 1 day late, seriously, if you're 1 day late, because that can happen to any of us if the mail, whatever. Let me finish. If you're 1 day late and they just decide, wow, you're a day late on your payment and you've never been late before, I can turn your car off. To me, that is pretty.
If I'm a day late in making an insurance payment, the next day, I will not have insurance.
That is not true. They give you a grace period. Health insurance, 30 days.
Not to my
Car
knowledge.
insurance, and you're also with your car or your house
but you're
payments.
also notified of those grace. Anyway, back to our caller.
My point is, do you really think that's fair not to have 1 day or a grace period at all?
All I know that in the contract, that's the way it states, and they do call them and they do talk to them before they turn the car off.
You know
it has been in Idaho for over 2 years now because I've dealt with half a dozen people that have to deal with them.
Well, you know what? So I don't think they should get loans to begin with then.
So you should just be able to sell them a car, and they shouldn't have to worry about paying it back because, bad stuff just happens.
That's not true.
Well,
but
that's kind of what you're saying.
No, she's saying, I think if there's a grace period, you should have a grace period before they do that. And I'm sure this isn't the only situation. How many people are in emergency? How many people do rush something?
If you know what? I think there's
no grace period
then
here.
you go to the end of the grace period, and then they shut it off, and then the next day something like this happens, then what? I mean, it can go on and on and on.
No,
Look,
I don't
you
think
got a
people...
time, you got to pay. If you don't pay, they shut it off. It's that simple.
Yeah, fine, but how many of us have had a late check for whatever reason because you mailed it, didn't get there in 10 days, like they say? I mean, my gosh, I think this is terrible.
Then that's
I have to
planning
say,
on your part.
Oh, yeah, it's always the person's fault.
Well,
you know what? I think...
Should we not have responsibility for our own actions?
Have
Should everybody else always be required to fix our problems? God, I'm getting sick of that liberal attitude.
If you don't think this is put in there to screw over people, that people have no idea, like they did with the subprime mortgage loans that we're still recovering from.
They are offering
and they are making money off of these people, a service that they are making 25% off.
Oh my gosh, we're making a profit. Holy
by
smoke,
screwing consumers over. You don't have a grace period on that. Shame on them. There is no grace period. We just had her say there's no grace period.
Pay it by the time it's due, or you're done.
Fine.
What could be easier than that?
Right, because everyone does that. Shame on you and shame on those loans. And I'm going to ask the governor about that. The governor-elect.
AJ Balukoff and Bert Marley next here on Top Story. Welcome back to Top Story, 7360300. Welcome back, Jill.
Thanks, Kelly. Same to you.
We do have some breaking news. According to the Associated Press, Attorney General Eric Holder is resigning. That's all we know.
That's it.
Don't know why, don't know effective when, don't know what happened. It's just that Eric Holder is said to be resigning from the U.S. Attorney General's office. So we will have more on that a little bit later in the show.
That's right.
We'll have it at least at 10 o'clock from the Fox Radio News Network. Right now, we have with us, I'm going to have two interviews right now. We have A.J. Balukoff, who's the Democratic candidate for Idaho governor. And then a little later this hour, we will have Democratic candidate Bert Marley, a candidate for the lieutenant governor. So, first of all, I'd just like to say to both of you, welcome.
Welcome.
And thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
AJ, can I call you AJ?
You may.
All right. Give us a little background for those who don't know much about you.
Okay. I'm not a career politician. I'm a businessman. I started out as a certified public accountant, practiced as a CPA for 25 years. Along the way, I started buying some athletic clubs. So I had a chain of athletic clubs, which I eventually sold. And today I'm one of the owners of the Grove Hotel, CenturyLink Arena, and the Idaho Steelheads hockey team.
Oh, so you're kind of diverse.
Yes.
Why did you decide to run for governor?
Well, I've been on the Boise School Board for 17 years, and I've watched as our state has disinvested in public education. You know, Governor Otter is the first governor in the history of the state to have cut education funding. And it's more than just the funding. It's also the erosion of local control. I think decisions like the education of your child are best made close to home by the parents, the people of the community who elect a school board. And over the years, the legislature and the governor have taken more and more of that control away from locally elected school boards, and they dictate from the State House, which I think is kind of foolish in our state when you've got districts that range in size from 37,000 students down to a handful of students. The one size fits all does not fit all in Idaho.
Do you think part of the problem, too, is I think it was in 2007 when Governor Risch was in place, he changed the funding for schools from property tax to sales tax, and they've seen now like $1 billion in supplemental levies since locally. Do you think that's sort of why they've kind of backed off of education because they're like, well, people can pay for it at home instead?
Well, prior to that tax shift that Governor Risch presided over, about half the funding did come from local property taxes, but school boards had the authority to levy that tax. That tax and authority was taken away and replaced with a 1 penny sales tax increase. Now, for most people, that was a tax increase.
Right.
And unless you owned a big home or more than one home, you experienced a tax increase. And then the legislature started cutting funding to public schools, and that's forced districts to pass supplemental levies. 95 of our 115 school districts have now passed supplemental levies. So today we have the 1 penny sales tax plus the property tax. And the problem with the property tax right now is the supplemental levies are only good for 2 years.
Right.
So it makes long-term planning pretty difficult for school districts to fund ongoing programs with temporary money.
So as governor, would you change that setup? Would you go back to how it was prior to this?
Well, I think that prior procedure was better than what we have today, partly because we've got districts that cannot pass supplemental levies.
Right.
And so the system we're under today has created great disparity between districts around the state. The small rural districts are not getting the same educational opportunities that the large urban districts with market value are getting. Part of what we had before was a funding formula that took that market value into consideration and tried to equalize the state distribution so that rural districts were treated more or less equally with the larger urban districts that have market value.
The Idaho is criticized a lot for being toward the bottom of per student spending for education. A lot of people think that in Idaho we get a bigger bang for the buck if you try to compare how much money we spend here, say, for in New York, how much they spend per student in New York. Is raising that amount that we spend per student, is that, some people see that as just throwing more money at it when there might be some other ways to handle this. And I guess what I'm saying is if we're criticized for being toward the bottom of spending less per student than other states, is throwing more money at it really going to fix the problem?
Well, I really don't like that term, throwing more money at it, because you have to be careful on how you spend the money. But you do need to fund schools adequately. And I'll say that schools are doing a good job, as good as they can with limited funding. But you've got districts that have cut programs, districts that have cut music programs, for example. You have class sizes that go into the 30s now instead of into the mid-20s. That's a result of these funding cuts. The other problem we have is Idaho teachers are the lowest paid teachers in the Northwest, maybe even in the country. And that makes it very, very difficult to retain teachers. As I've been traveling around the state and visiting with superintendents, they have a difficult time keeping good teachers. They move across the border and go to work where they can earn a lot more money than they can in Idaho. And people want to run schools and government like a business. I don't know of any business that tries to hire the best employees by paying the least amount of salary.
Right, and our results are just abominable, I have to say. I mean, I think we have a statistic now, 59% of all of our high school students that go to college have to take remedial classes, not to mention that 67% of fourth graders aren't even at the literacy rate. So something is going on in our schools, and do you think it's tied to the large classrooms or the teachers that we're losing, or what is going on here? We don't seem to be doing well.
Well, there's a number of factors, and certainly the funding is part of it, because when we've had the cuts in funding, they let teachers go, they don't hire teachers' aides, and so you don't have the ratios that you had before in the classroom. But I think also part of the problem of being so far behind is our kids start behind. Just recently, the fall Idaho reading indicator results were released, and in those results are, well, first of all, that is a test that's given in the fall within the first couple of weeks of school to kindergartners. Actually, it's given to first through third grade, but brand new kindergartners, and it measures their readiness to read. When you look at that statewide, we are less than 60% prepared to read, and in some districts, the kids that are the kindergartners that are ready to read are in the 20s, 20%, 24%. Now, there's a school district up in Idaho City, the Basin School District, that has had a preschool program in place for about 15 years. Their kids come in at 80% prepared to read.
Right, I know. It seems silly not to have preschool here or required preschool here.
I think that would help a lot.
Yeah.
What we have found, what the data shows, is that when kids are behind in kindergarten, they never catch up. They're still behind in the 12th grade. And that's part of the reason we have to have remedial courses in college. I believe that the Idaho core standards, which are higher than No Child Left Behind, will help with that preparation. The standards are more rigorous and are geared to help kids be better prepared to go to college. But there's a multi-pronged approach to getting the kids ready. But part of it is hiring good teachers. Part of it is a preschool program.
Okay. We have a caller. Top story. You're on the air with A.J. Balukoff. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I was just doing the math for what we pay a beginning teacher. They get $29,000 a year. They work about 191 days. I actually counted them from the Twin Falls School District. If you divide that out over even a 10-hour day, that's like $19 an hour. But if you go to the Idaho Department of Labor website and look at what the average elementary high school teacher makes, it's $45,750, which is almost $30 an hour. I don't know, and I'm not saying that the test results don't bear out, but my question has always been is, why is it always put more money into it? Well, why don't we hold the people that we're paying $50,000 a year to, or almost $50,000 a year to be more accountable? An administrator makes $77,000 on average in the state of Idaho, so principals.
All right, we're on limited time, so let's go ahead and take that on.
Take that on. Okay, great. You know, the administrators that are making $70,000 have been in their career for almost 20 years. So that's after 20 years. The starting salaries, compare that $29,000 a year.
I think it's more like $32,500 now. It seems to me like they raised the...
Yeah, I was going to say the 29, it seems to be low. I think it's more like $31,000 a year in Idaho for the beginning teacher salary. But you compare that to what people can make in other professions. You know, a beginning accountant right out of school makes in the neighborhood of $70,000 a year. And you can pick any kind of profession, and the teachers are some of the lowest paid. And you have to compare that to what teachers make in the competing areas, say the Northwest. Other teachers make a lot more than Idaho teachers make. So where do you think the best teachers are going to go?
Yeah.
They're going to go to where they can make the best money. And that's why I think we need to be more competitive in our salaries with teachers. If we want to attract the best teachers, and frankly, student achievement is most affected by two things. One is good teachers, and two is engaged parents.
Right.
And those are the two things we need to concentrate on. Giving tests doesn't really help student achievement. It's a measurement. It's a tool that teachers use to know how they are. How the curriculum is going along, how the students are relating, so they know where they've got to go back and hit the curriculum harder. But giving tests doesn't necessarily, in and of itself, raise student achievement. Other things that we could do that would raise student achievement would be to give teachers more professional development, and that has proven to raise student achievement.
I want to change the subject here a little bit. We don't have much time left in this segment. We do have another segment with you, but what about Medicaid expansion? You're in favor of that, right?
I am in favor of that for several reasons. First of all, it makes financial sense to the state. Right now, the way we pay for people who are uninsured is they show up at the emergency room, which is the most expensive and least efficient place to treat them. And then since they can't pay, our counties pay, which means we have paid through our property tax. And if the hospital bill comes to more than $11,000, the state catastrophic fund pays. Between the cities, the counties, and the state, we are paying somewhere between $80 and $90 million a year to care for uninsured people. It would be much more efficient if we could insure those folks that can't afford to be insured and help them have a family doctor where they could be treated not in the emergency room. But then that federal money then frees up the local money that we are now paying.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
We're going to go to a break. We'll be right back with A.J. Balukoff on Top Story.
You're right.
7360300 is the number to call. We are kind of running out of time. We still have a couple of questions we want to ask, so we're going to refrain with the phone calls for right now. But I do have to say that yesterday's $100 instant winning name is Gary Kaiser.
Gary Kaiser, congratulations.
And your $100 word of the day for today is horizon.
Horizon.
You can go to our website at newsradio1310.com, click on word of the day, type in horizon, Horizon, and listen tomorrow. And if you hear your name tomorrow and you played the word today, you can win $100. Okay, so A.J. Balukoff is with us. He is the Democratic candidate for governor of the state of Idaho. And you were finishing up your thoughts on Medicaid expansion before we went into the break.
Yes, I was just mentioning that it makes a lot of sense financially, that it'll free up local dollars that we are already spending on caring for uninsured people. If we let the federal government pay for that, that frees up $80 to $90 million a year that could be used for higher priorities here at the local level.
But I just have to ask this because a lot of people say, but that money that the federal government uses to pay for it is still our money.
Well, it is, and if we don't take it, it's going to be used to finance Medicaid expansion in California or New York or someplace else.
Yeah, in other states.
Which kind of runs into the problem that they see it as overspending. If we don't take it, somebody else will, and that's kind of the wrong attitude to have, they say.
Well, but that's the truth. If we don't take it, it's not going to, someone else will take it. It's not going to affect the federal deficit one way or the other, whether we take the money or not.
But it also costs more to the state of Idaho not to take it.
Well, it does.
Yeah.
It does, because if we don't take the money, then we are paying for uninsured people with our property taxes and with our income and sales tax. And that's costing us $80 to $90 million a year right now.
What about federal lands? That's a big interest around here. A lot of people would like to get all the federal lands back that Idaho has. What's your view on that?
Well, first of all, I don't know how we can legally do that, because on the act that created Idaho as a state, we agreed that those were federal lands and we would not take them over. But even if we could find a way to do that, we cannot afford to own those federal lands. It costs a lot of money to care for them, to fight forest fires. I just look at the Beaver Creek fire last year, and if that were Idaho lands, that would have either bankrupted the state or we would have had to sell off a lot of lands to pay for that. Right now, we own the federal lands in partnership with the rest of the states in the union, and we all help pay for the care and the management of those lands. Now, I am in favor of having a local voice in working with the federal land managers, the Forest Service officials, the BLM managers, to help meet and manage the lands for the benefit of local communities. But I'm not in favor of taking them over for the state, because we can't afford them, and we would undoubtedly have to sell off some of those lands to pay for the management and care of it. And when they become private property, then those of us that like to hike and fish and hunt and use those public lands may find we have limited access. And I want to keep the access open for the people of Idaho. That's one of the benefits of living here in Idaho, is our access to the wilderness, to the mountains, to the forests, and the rivers.
Yeah, because at the debate last night, your opponent, Bujak, one of your opponents, said that, he would be in favor of selling county by county, to extract natural resources. And to me, I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, you're going to destroy the land. How do you feel about that?
Well,
and would that really happen, or could it happen?
Well, it certainly could happen if you're given if the state has the say over that, but they're still going to have to comply with EPA regulations and everything else. So I don't know how that would happen. It's certainly not going to be as easy as Mr. Bujak made it seem to be, because just because the state owns the land doesn't mean you're free of all federal regulations, and the EPA is going to be very involved in any mining activity. But I think things like timber extraction and maybe even mining, if there are scientifically responsible ways, sensible ways to do some timber mining and perhaps some kinds of mining, when that's done responsibly and there's some agreement among the interested parties, that could be done on federal lands with local input.
We have about 30 seconds left. Minimum wage, state minimum wage, in favor or against? Why?
Okay, I'm in favor of raising the minimum wage. Right now, $7.25 will not even support one person working on it. We just saw some information that was reported that somebody figured that to support yourself, you have to be earning about $14.50 an hour. So it's so low that what's the incentive to go to work?
And also, these people are doing 2 to 3 jobs. Plus, we as taxpayers are subsidizing a lot of these companies who now these people who are working full time are applying for food stamps and government assistance while they have a job.
Yeah. We are out of time. A.J. Balukoff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Best
We
of
appreciate
luck.
you coming in.
Thank you for having me with you today.
We have Bert Marley, who is the Democratic candidate for lieutenant governor, up next, right here on Top Story. 7360300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. Welcome back. Just wanted to let you know that we're reaching the time where you may not have to worry about mowing your lawn too much for the rest of the year. So you got that big old riding lawnmower sitting out in the yard, and you're thinking, what in the world am I going to do with that? Well, you contact Clearwater Power Equipment, which now have a store in Twin Falls after expanding from the Wood River Valley area, and they will store it for you through the winter. And now, if you want to find out more about how that works, give them a call, 734-7767. I think they also even have pickup and delivery. So
nice.
734-7767. If you're looking for Husqvarna outdoor power equipment, they've got it. Same with Echo. They are the experts. They service it. They sell it. They don't sell wood. They don't sell washers and dryers. They don't sell plumbing equipment. They just sell this stuff. So you want somebody to answer your questions, they've got the answers. 252 Washington Street, 734-7767. The folks at Clearwater Power Equipment in Twin Falls. Bert Marley is the... You'll have to excuse me, I'm kind of a fan of Bob Marley, so if I accidentally call you Bob Marley, the musician,
he doesn't have the dreadlocks. Okay.
That's right. So Bert Marley is the Democratic candidate for lieutenant governor. Thanks for being on the show today.
Yes, welcome.
Be here. Thank you.
Kind of give us a little bit of a background where you come from and such.
Sure. Just briefly, I'm from over in eastern Idaho. I tell people I'm a fifth-generation Idahoan, and then say that's only important if you're a fourth-generation Idahoan. But I come from an agricultural background. Grew up on the family farm, milked cows, did all those kind of things, and have been involved with the family farm and currently own the family farm. I was also involved in agriculture, worked for an agrochemical company for a number of years, and then started my own agrochemical business. And long about January one year, I decided that I needed to do some other things, and spraying weeds doesn't work very well in January. So I did some substitute teaching.
Oh, okay.
And I got hooked on working with kids, and it was just a fantastic experience watching kids, understand concepts and get excited about what was going on. And so a year later, I ended up, teaching school full time, and I taught for 23 years at Marsh Valley High School. I was a German teacher, and then in a small rural high school, you end up teaching a whole bunch of stuff, but mostly German and government, and then a lot of other subjects. Along the way, I got involved in politics. I was frustrated with what was happening in education, and ended up in the legislature. I spent 4 years in the House, 5 years in the Senate, served on the House Education Committee, the Senate Education Committee, and then also spent 7 years on the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee.
So you kind of know how things work in Boise.
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
I have a pretty good idea of how it works.
So have you been disappointed seeing what's happened to education in Idaho since you were last there?
Well, after I left the Senate, I ended up going to work for the Idaho Education Association as their director of public policy. So I ended up right there, kind of in the middle of it, and spent quite a bit of time dealing with the Luna laws, the vote no on Props 1, 2, and 3, and all that kind of thing, and then retired recently. But yeah, I'm very
but AJ pulled you back. How did you get back into this?
It was kind of exciting when he came and said, "I'm thinking about running for governor," and I said, "Why in the world did you want to do that?" And he said, "I can't stand what's happening to education." And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, obviously. And and education's been important to him. It's important to me. So I said, "How can I help?" And, I'm thinking house party,
Right.
And he said, "I'd like you to run for lieutenant governor." And it didn't take me very long at all to think that was a good idea. So I kind of come out of retirement, and I'm really looking forward to this, and have enjoyed working together with AJ. We're on the same page on so many issues, but education is the driving issue that got us both involved. And and it's kind of the number one priority that we have moving forward.
So I'll ask you pretty much the same question I asked A.J. Balukoff here a few moments ago. With Idaho being on the bottom of several of these lists as far as education is concerned, how would you fix things?
Well, I think it's some of the same things that AJ's talked about. You hate to go immediately to funding, but when you're at the very bottom of the funding barrel, then that's someplace you have to look. I think there's some other things that are very important in improving education. I think we need to return more authority to the local school districts to make decisions. We've gotten in the legislature, and having been there for a number of years, we get in the habit of kind of, preaching local control, but not practicing it very often. We like to micromanage, and we've done that in education, and it's created this kind of one-size-fits-all that AJ talked about, and I think we need to return some more authority to the local school districts. The other thing is, I think our teachers, having been a teacher for 23 years, given the circumstances that we work under and the conditions we work under, Idaho gets a pretty good bang for their buck out of their educators. And and I'll say that anytime, anywhere. We can talk about where we are with our funding, which is right at the bottom, while our level of educational excellence isn't as high as we would like to see. It's certainly higher than that 49th or 50th place. And I think even Governor Otter made a remark about that. Well, we're not as bad off as our support of education
as Mississippi.
Yeah. So we and some of the things we need is better professional development and putting more money into helping teachers be better.
Okay, we'll be right back with Bert Marley, who's the Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor here on Top Story. 7360300 is the number to call. We are back with Bert Marley, who is the Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor in the state of Idaho. One of the things that I'm curious about, and I think a lot of other folks are too, and in fact, during the break, Mr. Balukoff even said that you get this question a lot. If you were elected as governor and lieutenant governor as Democrats, how would you be able to work with the Republican legislature in the political climate that we have today?
Well,
or could you?
I definitely think we can, and I think the answer is really fairly simple. You start to put those labels aside. We spend so much time worried about labels and labeling people and labeling parties when our real job is to solve problems and to make life better for Idahoans. And I think we can do that. I think we both have the personalities and the reputations of being able to sit down and work with people, bring people together, and work towards common solutions. We've seen it happen in the past. I mean, we have to go back a few years, but we've had Democratic governors, Cecil Andrus, John Evans, and the whole time they were serving as governors, they had Republican houses and senates to deal with, and they were able to do that. And those were very successful times during that period of time. There are ways to work together. And I think a lot of it's setting the labels aside and trying to solve the problem in front of you. And I think that can be done and accomplished.
We have a caller. I'm going to go ahead and take one. Okay. Top Story, you're on the air with Bert Marley. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I see AJ got a C- from the National Rifle Association. I was curious where you stood on the Second Amendment.
All right.
Thank you for that question. I certainly support the Second Amendment. I have no as I support most of the amendments. Sometimes we focus on just one amendment, and I certainly appreciate the First Amendment and support that. I support the Second Amendment along with the other amendments. So I don't have any issue there.
AJ, they said you got a C-. Is that what they said?
Yes, they gave me a C- because I wrote a letter explaining my position on guns and gun control rather than answering their questionnaire. I just felt their questions were leading and biased, and I couldn't really give an accurate depiction of my view of the Second Amendment, which I do support. I'm a hunter and fisherman. I have a combination lifetime combination hunting fishing license in Idaho. I like to hunt waterfowl and upland game, and so I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment and the Idaho Constitution, which is even more restrictive than the Second Amendment. The Idaho Constitution prohibits even the registration and special taxation of firearms and ammunition.
So it's just basically their questionnaire they did, which I've heard from people is difficult because there's hard to answer.
I think even Governor Otter declined from answering that, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
I don't know.
Okay, because I kind of remember that little skerfuffle that was going on at the time. Back to Mr. Marley, the Medicaid expansion. That's a big one.
Well, and as we've discussed earlier, and I certainly agree with what AJ said, that we do need to expand the Medicaid. I think of some of the stories we've heard as we've gone around the state where, we've already talked about how much it costs us as taxpayers here in Idaho, but there's a kind of a moral side to that too. We ran into a story up in northern or the middle of the state where a young girl had appendicitis. And, the family put off going in until it became critical. They didn't have insurance. They didn't have a doctor. They finally went in. The local hospital at the point it was at didn't feel comfortable performing the surgery. So they life flighted her to Boise, where fortunately they were successful. They were able to treat her. But the bottom line, had they been able to do it locally, it probably would have cost $7,000.
How much did it cost?
They felt like it was going to be over $100,000. And as taxpayers, we're picking that up.
Right.
And if we can have those people on through Medicaid expansion, have those people on insurance, so they're going into the doctors, they're going into the urgent care centers and getting those things addressed immediately. I think that's going to save taxpayers a lot of money, and then it's just the right thing to do.
Because we have like 77,000 Idahoans who would qualify and can't.
Yeah.
And it seems really kind of mean not to.
I want to, before we run out of time, there's a lot of folks in the state of Idaho that consider Eastern Democrats as just so off the wall, it's not even practical. How do you separate yourself from what we might consider the Eastern Bleeding Heart liberals,
like me?
I guess?
Like me from Boston?
I think we really do. And I think we're very, very moderate. I had the opportunity in 2000 to go to the Democratic National Convention. I was, representing state officials at that convention, and it didn't take me very long sitting there to realize that I was kind of on the right, or the far right wing of the Democratic Party, and I think that's the case, with most elected Democrats in this state.
Oh, yeah. They're like Republicans out east.
Yeah, well, not really, but, I think we just have a little more moderate view of how problems can be solved and how to do things.
Well, we're just about out of time. Any final words you have? About 15 seconds?
Well, I think so. I'd like to say, if you're going to vote for AJ for governor, then you need to vote for me as lieutenant governor because he needs the support, he needs the help. And all you do if you elect a Democrat governor and a Republican lieutenant governor is you automatically create dissension and conflict at the very top. Right, and we don't need that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate AJ Balukoff and Bert Marley. Appreciate it. Time now for the Huckabee Report. You can hear the Huckabee Report each weekday at this time, brought to you exclusively by Waddell & Reed. Laura Nelson, Josh Funk, and Steve Stanger are the financial advisors. We haven't talked yet today about the Lowen Honey Loader, and I think we need to do that.
I think we do.
That's right. The new Lowen Honey Loader from Stanley & Company loads all type of manure from liquid to frozen and dry. Low horsepower requirements, fast loading up 7 miles an hour. I tell you what, if you can't do it with this thing, you can't do it with anything.
That's right.
But not everybody needs a Lowen Honey Loader. If you have a large feedlot or dairy operation, you might be a contender. And if you want to see one of these in operation, get a hold of Pat Hartzell with Stanley & Company. He can make an appointment for you on one of these big dairy or feedlot operations that use one. You can go out there and watch it work. You can kick the tires. You can talk to the owner. You can take a look and dissect it if you want to. Well, within limits.
Whatever.
But, find out what makes it tick, and then you might decide you want one. Then you can talk to Pat Hartzell again. 280-1167 is his personal cell phone number. That's 280-1167 for Pat Hartzell. So we heard earlier that U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder is resigning. So what is the scoop on that?
Well, this is the deal. He said he'll resign the post. He's been there almost nearly 6 years. as soon as his successor can be confirmed. Well, he might be the entire term of President Obama because they can't seem to confirm anyone. So anyway, but actually, if he just lasts until December, which is kind of shocking, they said he'll become the third longest serving attorney general in the history of the United States. So you're like, wow.
That is amazing.
And you're like, well, okay, but you know what? He's been a frequent target of Republicans, so I'm sure they're overjoicing and rejoicing, and there you go.
I might even be a little bit. Just saying.
I don't know how he's last that long. I mean, he's had, a lot on his back.
Well,
but,
when you think back, actually hearing that he's a third longest serving
attorney general
if he goes till December was kind of surprising to me. But if you think back, it does seem like a lot of the administrations have changed attorney generals, like in the midterm or
maybe after the first term.
Right,
I mean, it's it's tough, and just being under the spotlight. I think working in the White House anyway is tough. I mean, you're on call 24/7. It's not a 9-to-5 job. You work weekends, you work crises, you travel with the president.
It'd be tough.
It's tough.
It'd be
so
tough.
Anyway,
actually, being a local dog catcher would be tough for me, man. I wouldn't be able to handle that.
I don't think they're the same, but whatever.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Now,
tomorrow we actually have another candidate, and that is going to be Nels Mitchell. He's running against Senator Risch.
Oh, okay. So that'll be interesting.
It should be very interesting.
Now, we also have, I need to get back some of the Republican sides, so we will have them on as well a little bit later. So, don't panic yet.
I guess the Dems are more interested in getting on the air. What's up with that?
We'll see you tomorrow right here on Top Story. Have a good day. Goodbye, Jill.
Bye, Cal.